As you know, we're TBVanguard, and one of the things that we try to do is we're a fan page for Chris, obviously, but we also try to do things that are supportive of the fans, and our whole little motto is by fans, for fans. And just like most of Chris's fans, we've been really looking forward to the documentary. We've been waiting on it for a long time. And we just wanted to have an opportunity, and we might actually do it again, to let people who saw the movie come back and say what their feelings were, what observations they had, and to just give people a chance to kind of decompress after what they saw in the documentary. So kind of have a little bit of a structure, only because there's topics we do want to cover that came out of the documentary, and that was based on the poll that we did yesterday. So we do want to make sure we have time to cover that. And each one of us will be responsible for a different topic. So when it comes to the question about trauma and traumatic events affecting Chris, but then also by the same token affecting anyone, and how that affects the brain and how stress affects the brain, Nikki's going to be talking about that. One of the things that came out was sexual molestation and how boys are treated differently versus girls, and how that impacts boys as they become men. And we saw, some details that we finally were given from Chris in the documentary. We're going to talk about that, and Paula's going to handle that. And then one of the things that I think we were all surprised was when Chris said that he wanted to marry Rihanna, and they were like 18 or 19 years old. So that whole topic of teen marriages and, the success rate, and, does that generation think that that's something that's realistic? We did a poll on that, and we were very surprised at what the poll results were. And I'll be the person that's going to be talking about that. So about TBVanguard is that we're in 3 different time zones. And Paula is going to talk about where she was, where she saw the movie. Nikki's going to talk about, where she was, where she saw the movie. And I'll talk about where I was and where I saw the movie. And then we'll stop and then give each person, like April and Sen and anyone who else joins in, an opportunity to talk about, where they were when they saw it, if you choose, but to also give us your views and insights on what you felt about the documentary. So I live in California. I live in Southern California. And I was lucky enough to be able to see the special premiere that they had on Tuesday in Los Angeles. And it was really nice to see all the support that Chris had from other people, celebrities, his peers. It was also really nice to see that Chris is sitting in the middle of the audience with the fans, with his family, with royalty, with Joyce. And he sat there the whole time and was mingling with all the people in the theater. And so that kind of had a different kind of tone to it, sort of like a little bit of a celebrity kind of buzz. But I did see the movie on the 8th in Anaheim, and I got a chance to see what the general public was thinking about the movie, and they were very receptive to it. And at the end, everybody was clapping, and a lot of people were standing up, giving him an ovation, standing ovation. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, cool. All right, yes. I was in Frisco, Texas when I with my family. I purchased tickets for so I also attended and watched it, and it was an amazing experience.
I'm in now. I don't know how, but somehow I have sound.
That's okay, Paula. We'll circle back around. Don't worry. April's telling us about her experience, and she said she was in Frisco, Texas. So tell us some more about what you thought, what you felt, and some of the topics.
Oh, I was totally shocked at the information that he provided. So was my daughter. My husband, he, we of course, we all three got into discussion about it. It was very eye-opening to find out what actually had happened, because I realized during his commentary that, you know, Rihanna had never really said what actually happened. She just kind of, you know, I couldn't believe he done that. I couldn't believe, you know, that's a majority of her interviews, what it consisted of. It just really didn't go into details about what actually caused this event to take place. There was no background, no type of additional feedback. So when I heard, that was my first time hearing what actually took place. So that was very surprising to me. And it also was surprising that they had been previously having those type of, you know, physical contact with each other. It just was very interesting. I thought it was very, it was very helpful to hear his side of the story, because to me, it would have been more beneficial for them as a whole to come out with the story together when the event happened, that everybody took full responsibility for their part, and that in educating everyone across the board.
Bring up a good point, because the whole reason there was the movie was because of what happened in the car. And, you know, if it had been, you know, everybody taking ownership, it might have gone a different way. But it was good to finally hear the truth of what happened in the car from Chris's perspective. But you're absolutely right. And I think, you know, there's so much in that movie that we could pick apart and say, wow, we didn't know this, wow, we didn't know that. But this was the main incident that kicked everything off. And, you know, I'm glad you brought that up as the first thing that you want to talk about, April, because everything hinged off of that.
Well, I know that from previous relationships when I was that age, that is very common to be in altercations together, to be slapping and spitting and doing all this stuff behind the scenes in your relationship with another partner. I remember going through that and doing that with boyfriends in high school. So I feel like, and I don't doubt for 1 minute that still is happening. It's equal responsibility there. I absolutely, you know, knew when I was hitting that person or when that person was hitting me, it was absolutely wrong in the moment, but you're emotional and you're feeling it and you're doing it. You're acting based on a response instead of thinking. And that's just, I mean, I absolutely have no doubt in my mind. That's why I said it would have been educational across the board for both of them to come out and take responsibility and say, hey, we both were wrong. We both should have handled this differently. You know, we're in a situation where we're kids trying to have an adult relationship. And I feel, I see that every day.
I was saying
I agree with you 100%. And I think that, you know, it's already happened between Chris and Rihanna, but one of the things we can do is bring it up for people who are young and going through it right now and say, hey, you know, this is unacceptable. You're young and this is unacceptable. And maybe use the fact that Chris brought it up later in his life as a pivot point to help young adults who are going through it right now or might be experiencing, you know, relationships like that. Because like you said, April, when you're young and in an emotional relationship, you don't have maturity yet to know how to handle it. And a lot of people go through, you know, both sides hitting each other just because they're immature.
But I think that their relationship was so, they were trying, like you say, trying to be adults. But other people knew this was going on. They knew how they were behaving.
Right.
But the problem was, even though they were kids, they were bosses. And so, you know, nobody's going to jeopardize their paycheck by saying, okay, y'all shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, I mean, they needed to be checked, but yeah, in their position, nobody was going to check them. Who would do it, you know?
Exactly.
Even the issue of them they were drinking at the party.
Right.
Yeah, that's another topic. They were drinking at the Clive Davis party and they were both underage.
Yeah.
So why would they serve alcohol at an event like that? That actually adds to the problem.
And again, we're doing the same thing. I remember drinking under the age of 21,
Oh, yeah.
being at parties, doing the same thing. It is there are a lot of topics he addressed that is very commonly still taking place today.
Anybody else wants to contribute, please say your name so I can capture it. I know Paula's voice, but everybody else, please say your name and then go ahead, Todd. Who wanted to say something else about this?
Well, I can. Hey, Dee, it's Nikki. I had it on mute on accident. So, hi everybody. I took my nephew to see it on Thursday, and I remember just, kind of just watching like in awe, wondering, what he was going to say about different things. And when he started to talk, give the background story on what led up to the incident, I guess, and him losing her trust, I felt so bad because it was like, this is, so much deeper than just what people thought.
Right.
Because as soon as he said, I didn't know who she would tell, that clearly meant he didn't tell her the truth about sleeping with this woman, because this was a relationship that shouldn't have happened.
Right.
And so when he finally does trust her, Rihanna, enough to tell her, then the trust is gone.
Yeah.
And it was just like he couldn't get it back. And I was like, that's sad that that was kind of like the demise of this inappropriate relationship, was the demise of their relationship, and then everything kind of went to hell in a handbasket from there. So
I can understand your point of view on that. This is the thing about that. This is to me where the maturity level was lacking. This is April speaking. Just like when she was questioning him about a previous relationship. Well, see, that's the immaturity of...
I don't think she should have been doing that, though. That's none of her business.
See, when we're kids, I remember doing this. You're seeing her, you're still dating her. What did y'all do when y'all were together? That is immaturity. That is what kids do. They don't want that to be a past before they came on the scene. It's just a part of being jealous. It's just a part of that immaturity.
Right.
A relationship that is way over your head.
Right. But the sad thing about that is, because of her immaturity, she couldn't understand that he finally was serious about her and trusted her enough to tell her that information. She didn't. She just looked at it as, well, you lied to me, so the trust is gone. It's no. He didn't know who you would tell. There could have been something serious that happened if you told about him sleeping with this woman he should have never been with.
Right.
So he didn't have the maturity to be like, oh, wow, he trusts me now. He does love me now. He wants to be serious now because he's sharing this, information with me that has serious consequences.
Well, this is the thing, too. Even with that relationship, that wasn't a consensual relationship.
No.
That was a sexually abuse.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He was
Absolutely.
He was being pretty much bullied. And I can understand, I mean, me and my husband, we sat down and we broke this down, because I'm like, I could see a child coming from social-economical setting where they're without, and then you have this in front of you, being dangled in front of you. This is what you want. This is what you need to help and get your family to that next level, because what you're doing isn't working. What they're doing isn't working. So here you are with the weight of the world on your shoulders, thinking, this is what I need to do, and whatever comes with that, and probably in his young baby mind, 16 years old, they're still babies. I've been a high school teacher. I know. They think they know everything and they can do everything, but they're not. They are still young people. Then we'll go there if you let them, but that's where you as an adult, male or you put them in their place, but he was put in a predatorial situation.
I agree.
But he was being preyed upon by a full-grown woman. So with that being said, even like the words that Chris used, I was ashamed. I didn't know if I could trust her with this information. His words, you have to listen. Victims, sexual abuse victims use those exact same words. They hide that. So that's exactly what was going on here. So in this industry, in this music industry, which is terrible, that they're having to trade things to get to where they're trying to be at in their career. And those are things that they shouldn't have to give up. That integrity, their trust, their love of themselves, that takes a lot from someone. I had no clue.
Right.
I had no clue to the extent of that until I did the research on it.
Right.
There
And you know what?
There were a lot of balls dropped there.
Yeah. And then too, you have that other piece, and that even that woman was aware of, when Chris said he lost his virginity at 8 years old to a 14-year-old girl.
I mean,
so the age difference there, that's a high school freshman.
That's
maybe
exactly
8th grade. So, and yeah, so that's something. He's very hypersexualized, but that's something that started very young for him, and that woman is aware of that because she's the one that he said told him to never mention that in interviews.
Of course.
So as far as when he lost his virginity, so
right.
But
sad. At the end of the day, he didn't even. I can tell from his own innocence, him not knowing that he was sexually abused. He was being his situation shouldn't have been. 8 years old. You're a baby. You shouldn't even be thinking about that. But someone put you in that position. That's the same thing that happened to Antoine Fisher. I don't know if his story, but same thing. It's the same situation.
But that brings up the issue of the double standard of molestation of boys versus girls. I mean, with boys, it's looked on. I actually saw it described when a teacher had sex with 3 boys in school, that she had relationships. Those aren't relationships. She's the adult, and she's supposed to be. That's not a relationship. But because it's a woman with boys, girls are considered victims in this case. But with boys, though they are victims, but I'm saying with boys, then they're considered lucky. It's like that's the perception.
Yeah. To help keep their ego intact. Sad.
Yes. And those people should be held to the same standard as any other male molesting a child. When you're in a power of authority, a teacher, that's a power of authority.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is sexual harassment. That is sexual abuse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think any mother sending their son off to school to get their first sexual experience from a teacher. Right. I think a lot of mothers would be appalled if that was going on, because that's not normal.
No.
I'm a mother. Absolutely would be.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. That would not be okay. And because of, in earlier part of my career, I was a teacher, and I saw a lot of behavior, not on the child's part, but on the teacher's part, that made me very hypersensitive when it came to my children in school. I needed to, it just helped me realize I need to be more aware of my kids' interactions with their teacher and anyone else at the school district. I lost that trust being a teacher myself.
Right. And it's and boundaries too. I've worked in schools and with young children and in junior high, and you really need to be able to establish firm boundaries with students. Because they will try to flirt with you. They will, and then you have to wonder, why do you not know that this is inappropriate?
That's exactly right.
How do you, what's going on? And not to say that there is something going on, but you should know that you shouldn't be flirting with an adult.
Or allowing them. At the end of the day, those are children. They're going to do whatever they want to do. They don't understand.
That's true.
Understand actions. Those are children. So it is the adult's responsibility to ensure that nothing goes beyond a respectful distance, communication. You have to teach kids that, though, because they don't know what.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Because it was taught to me. Yeah, it was taught to me.
You have to teach that to them. That's an educational opportunity or moment, and that's the job of the teacher to ensure that you are communicating and teaching it to them at that time.
Right. Absolutely.
So that kind of leads to one of the other things that we wanted to talk about, which is, the sexual abuse that Chris experienced, the fighting with Brianna, and the whole disaster that led to that, emotionally and professionally. One of the things that I hope Nikki's going to cover is how that affects, like, each trauma, each one of those incidents does have an effect on the brain. And Nikki, can you kind of just give us an overview on how that works? We don't think of a brain being affected like that. So can you tell us how, trauma and stress affects the brain real quickly?
Well, sure. Once you experience a traumatic event, it affects 3 different areas of your brain specifically. And I won't boggle down with the science of it all. However, just to say that, your brain is delicate and it functions a certain way. So each time something traumatic happens to you, you shut down and you don't, you have to find a different way to react to things. So if I'm experiencing trauma, like let's say if I was, like you said, sexually assaulted in a certain spot, or in a parking lot, I'm going to avoid being in parking lots, because that's going to trigger that specific experience for me. I may avoid people who look like the person who assaulted me, because that's going to trigger that for me. I may avoid certain types of movies, anything that is going to trigger that, for me. Or I could do something completely different. I could be totally nonchalant about things, because, I don't care. It's not going to change. It's not going to get better. I used to talk about with you guys how I felt that Chris had become resentful because he hadn't healed, and he would behave in certain ways because of that trauma, because he wasn't at peace with himself. So when you experience traumatic events, not only does the stress affect you in a certain way, depending on what it is and depending how many times you're reliving that trauma, it can become very, very, very difficult to move forward. And you can stay really stuck. So there was actually a study done that said that every time someone experiences trauma, it impacts their brain. And there have been, slides and different things where they do scans on the brain. And the brain actually, for people who have been traumatized, it works differently. Like, they can see it in scans, that it is certain parts of the brain are acting differently than in someone who hasn't experienced that type of trauma. And so when you look at someone like Chris, who experienced the trauma of his mom being abused, who experienced sexual abuse, who experienced domestic or dating violence, who experienced just the PTSD from all of that, or even the mental illness that, he hasn't come and spoken about, but they kind of talked about that when he was on probation, the bipolar disorder. It's amazing that he's even where he is because of all these things that he's experienced and all these setbacks. It really is quite amazing that he's able to be where he is, because some people aren't,
Right. I was thinking about the trauma of seeing someone try to commit suicide. He was only 7 years old when he saw the man shoot himself in the head. I'm like, that's not a small deal. But I know at that time it was probably foreign to them to even think of, we need to get some therapy for this little boy. He saw this. Probably everybody needed therapy, but but they don't do it.
Yeah, and also the piece about how when he would urinate on himself, that's huge for trauma.
Yeah,
because when a child, when a child is being, when you're being experiencing trauma, or you don't feel you have control of your life, one of the things that and you probably know this too, April, one of the things that a lot of individuals will do is try to control, their bowels and their urination.
Yes.
Because that's one thing they can control, right? Or food, whether or not they eat, because that's something that they have control over. They may not be able to control all the other things in their life, but they can control whether or not they eat. They can control whether or not they go to the restroom. Now for him, he said that he was just, scared to get out of the bed and go use the bathroom. But a lot of other, studies have been done that will tell you, no, this is your way of exhibiting control, because you can't, he was too little to control anything else that was going on around him.
It's frightening.
It is. It really is.
And the fact that he talked about
I am surprised though.
growing up with the fear.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Him talking about the fear, growing up with fear, just being so fearful of another individual. They're in his home. He wasn't even able to be safe, sound, and secure in his own home.
Right.
Imagine that. I can't imagine feeling that type of fear in my own home. Not being able to go to the bathroom because I am so scared of what may happen. I mean, but there are children experiencing that every day. That's why I said, there were just so many opportunities here, just with him telling his story.
Right.
Just really, that's no telling how many people who can relate to his type of fear and an abuse that he suffered and watched his mother suffer. I mean, it's just amazing that someone can be that strong and continue on and still try to rise and still rise in their career, and that be their primary focus, determination. It's just really commendable.
It is.
For me, I just hope that, when we do these podcasts and we get people to talk about how they felt when they saw what Chris experienced, because he was able to, bravely share it with us, that people realize if they see that in their life, that's not normal, and that you got to get some help for that situation, because it could affect you and scar you later. And if you happen to meet up with somebody who has issues just like you, it can lead to disaster. Those two both were probably quote unquote soulmates for the fact that they had the same upbringing. They were rising stars at the same time and were holding on to each other. And then you got someone like a sexual predator, like trying to destroy that because of her own sexual perversion. And it's just sad that, for me, that was probably the first time I kind of felt sympathy towards Rihanna when you could hear the pain in her voice and she lost her best friend, because she went through the same thing Chris went through, top to bottom, what was going on at home. And Chris told her, remember Chris said in the movie, he said, I told her, don't be around us anymore, don't come around us. And he goes, and here she comes up and at the Grammys and said, hey, blah, 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 whatever she said to them. And he said he was looking at her like, what? And he said she went on about her business, but Chris told her, don't come around him and Rihanna anymore. And here she comes, forcing her way. It's just, who was there to protect him? Who was there to protect Rihanna?
Right. Yeah. I do want to speak to the mother aspect. I think that this is a thing I've always noticed, and I've always said that I felt like a lot like my mother. So I did grow up with someone who is distancing themselves or being able to get out of situations that aren't beneficial for the family at that time. And there are a lot of women like her out there who struggle. I mean, that's why we have so many abused women and abused and volatile situations going. I can absolutely relate to that. I can always say, even now, I mean, we just have two different personalities, my mother and I, because of things that she experienced or went through, and I had to go through with her because I'm her child. I'm here with her. At the end of the day, I'm a lot stronger person because of those experiences that I had. And I have to say that's probably the same deal with Chris. He's a lot stronger because he felt like he needed to be her defender, her protector.
Right.
Now, I mean, the whole thing is it comes to what she's there for him now. And I think, to me, Chris was so strong to be so candid, to be so open about everything. And that right there shows that he's got some healing on his side and he's got strength on his side. And it, to me, is just, like, I've been a fan of Chris since I was in high school. That's when he came out, for me at least. And you see him grow, you see all the things that he went through. And then when I saw the documentary and heard the details and the horror of some of the stuff that he went through, while I'm enjoying his music and stuff, I didn't even know what he was going through. And it's amazing, like you said, April, that he was able to survive that, because he's only like 1 year younger than me. He's the same as my youngest brother, my brother who's closest to me in age. They're the same exact age. And I couldn't see how my brother could have gone through that and survived it if he went through that. And it's amazing that he's been able to get through it. And I just hope that people will look at that documentary and look at the whole thing in its entirety, maybe look at it a couple times and realize that his story is very similar to what Michael Jackson went through when he was being beaten and stuff by his dad, and the stuff that he had to go through when he was coming up. There's stories that these people, we see them as superstars and rich and all that, but a lot of them come from humble beginnings, and we don't know. They didn't just walk into they didn't have a perfect family. That's why they were doing what they were doing to get out of this situation.
Right.
I thought it was interesting that he, at 18 or 19, wanted to get married. He wanted to marry Rihanna. It's like, that's, they were so young. We did a little poll asking if people thought teen marriage could work. They were just babies. But I think he wanted that, because sometimes when people don't have that normalcy at home, they want to create that for themselves. Rihanna, right. She was in a household. Neither one of them came from peaceful homes. But I think he probably wanted to create something, that he was missing. I don't know, but that's my impression. For him to have thought of that at that age, and he was so serious about it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I was surprised about was that you don't normally think someone Chris's age would be at that age, 18, 19 years old, would want to settle down and get married when both of them are actually sex symbols for their peer group.
Right.
But it seemed like they were just trying to make sure they could solidify their bond, because Rihanna didn't think he was serious, but then, she found out that he was serious. And that's a big step for someone to say, hey, I want to get married, and, at that age, it's just a surprise. Our poll was a surprise to all of us because, we threw the word soulmate out there, and that was the highest voted response, was that, yeah, if you're a soulmate, it makes sense to get married as teenagers. And a lot of people approved of teenage marriages. So I think when we added the numbers up, it was like 66% of the people who voted. We had almost 200 people vote that they thought that teen marriages could work. Where, that the whole discussion is, well, you're not even, in their case, they weren't even mature enough to not have, boyfriend and girlfriend fight in the car. So how mature are they going to be to have a marriage? Not only just a teen marriage, but they're both superstars dealing with millions of dollars and employing a whole group of people. Right. And like Paula said, they're bosses. So people are going to bow down and do whatever they want because they don't want to lose their job. How successful, that's just I would think, like, I have my views of marriage, but I would think marriage is stressful. Just being married could be stressful, let alone having rising career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People talk
about for those.
Marriage is work and it takes maturity, and at 18, I just don't think you even have lived long enough to understand what it takes. You know what you want. How can you possibly provide for someone else and provide what they need out of a relationship? So that is very unrealistic, but it depends, I think, too, because these were two damaged people drawn to each other. I think because of their traumatic experiences as children. So yeah, they are going to cling to anything, especially something that's similar to what they've already experienced. It's hard to find somebody who can truly understand your traumatic event if they haven't been through it themselves.
Right.
So I think that was number one reason why they were drawn to each other, like moth to fire. So I absolutely can see the reason why they wound up together, but I definitely don't think, especially in Hollywood, that their marriage would have lasted more than 5 minutes.
Right.
Because it's just too much work. You just have way too much responsibilities. And you're still just learning and growing yourself. You need to let yourself grow and experience different things, different places, different people. You need to do that before you go and take on these responsibilities. And they had no clue. That to me was, him, like you said, grabbing on to something that he wanted that he never had one of.
Right. They don't even seem to know how to date. When you think about it, just like Christine said, he didn't have the normal growing up. Because because he always, it's one girlfriend after another instead of just dating a lot of different people.
But then there's that underlying mask of not wanting to be alone.
Right.
And for some of them, because you have to be really comfortable with yourself and comfortable with your own, and a lot of individuals aren't. If they've never had to be alone, or if they're, they have their own internal issues, they don't want to do that. Right. And so they'll go from relationship to relationship to relationship just to not be alone. And I'm not saying that's specifically what he's doing.
Right.
But, there are people that do that. They want someone with them so that they're not alone.
Right.
Dealing with whatever it is that they need to deal with. Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Fear has a lot to do why a lot of people get married, because they don't want to wind up alone. And they want somebody to go through it with.
But I also think that
pain coming at them at the same time, it just seems like the best decision. And not that I'm not trying to dispute the fact that he loves her. I absolutely believe that you can be in love with someone and love people, but you're in such a rush to hang on to that feeling that you don't stop and take time to let it flourish, to let you both mature and see, where is this really gonna go? And that's the thing about dating and getting to know someone. You have to there's time put into that. It's not something you're just showing up to a venue to take some pictures, going out to eat. You really are spending time trying to get to know the other person. Make sure that you are a match for one another. And that just takes time. It's going to take more than 6 months to see if that's something that's going to go beyond the sexual, the fun times and things like that, because that's what's keeping you there right now is the sex and enjoying the great parts of that relationship. But then they went from having this sexual to having, combat and going back and forth. There was no happy medium there.
And they knew each other for a while. They dated. I think she said 1.5 to 2 years, but they don't have coping skills either. They didn't have coping skills to deal with their issues, appropriately, so that they could have a functioning relationship. And they were so kind of obsessed with each other and obsessed with whatever feeling and the toxicity of it all that they didn't even take the time to miss each other. You guys remember they went on tour together?
Yes.
They were everywhere together.
I gotta say something about that, because Terrence J in the movie was saying that they were inseparable, but here's my memory of it, because that was high school for me, and I remember, and this is just shows you immaturity, when because they were everybody knew Chris and Yana, and everybody loved Chris. And everybody knew they were a couple, even though they weren't admitting to it.
They were saying they were friends.
Yeah, but I distinctly remember when we knew that they were in a serious relationship when it's clear as day to me when Jordan Sparks was singing "No Air" on, I think it was
the bracelet.
American Idol.
Yeah, he took the words out of mouth. On America's
American Idol.
And here's the thing, it's all of a sudden Chris gets up there singing, and he's she's getting up close to him, and Chris is backing up, and she's getting close to Chris is backing up, and then all of a sudden, and I remember me and my brother, we were just screaming, all of a sudden Chris raises his hands and starts singing, and he's got that handcuff bracelet on, and we were he got a handcuff bracelet on, right?
She had it
the other half of that. bracelet. You know, we knew where it was. We knew Rihanna had the other half on, and
Right.
you know, from a young perspective, you don't see that as her, you know, Rihanna being insecure and, you know, because again, she was insecure around Jordan Sparks because Jordan, I guess, had a crush on Chris.
Right.
But as
Right.
you know, being in high school, I'm looking at that thinking, like, oh, how cute, they got handcuff bracelets on. I'm thinking, okay, this one has me ready to go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that that's the thing about the maturity part, because why does it have to be possessing another person?
Yeah.
Staying in that relationship. Why does it need to
But
be
that's,
about?
that's young love. That's that obsessive, you can't breathe thing.
Mhm.
But you're right, you have to get past that. But when you see it in the moment and you're in that same,
Oh, I know.
your mind, you're like, that's cute. They got the. I want handcuff bracelets. I mean, my boyfriend will get handcuff bracelets.
Cartier, right?
Yeah.
The Cartier cuff bracelet. Oh, they have Cartier cuff bracelets. It didn't even click to me. And you know,
Right. But neither.
yeah, you know. But then too, holding on to each other and not wanting anybody to know, even though everyone knew, but not wanting to own up to it because it's yours. You know. So
Yeah, but I gotta speak on that real quick too, because so for us in that moment, we knew they were dating,
Yeah.
and they would always ask Chris, "Are you in a relationship with Rihanna?" And he would say, yeah. But Rihanna would say, "That's my best friend. That's like my brother. That's like my
Right.
brother."
yeah, you don't say that. Yeah.
Right.
So we're thinking, when it finally came out that they were dating, we're thinking, wait, Rihanna always just used to say, he's like
We're
my
like
brother,
brother,
he's like my
sister.
brother and sister,
Yeah.
you know? So we're like,
did.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but just the way they looked at each other, you knew. I mean, you know, you can see people. You see people in love even from a distance. You know they're in love. They were like that. So yeah, that was a far-fetched story. But I think there was a little influence of Jay-Z, because remember he and Beyonce, we didn't know that they were. Well, we knew, but we didn't have proof they were together until they actually got married. It was like,
Yeah.
I think that was their influence. I think a little of his influence, because they kind of believed in that, keeping it private. But
I've always been rooting for him and Jordan Sparks to get together.
I agree.
I wonder who else on this call was rooting for him?
Me.
No problem.
That was me.
I
That
thought
was
that
me.
was her match because she was of light. I just could see that being a perfect
Yes.
match. And sometimes opposites are better, especially when you've been through bad things. You need somebody who can keep you in the light.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was
I
really
feel
not
the
drawn
same
to
way,
that.
April. Nikki feels the same way.
Well, you know, you never know. You never know.
I'm with Nikki.
You never know.
But you know, one of the things that we wanted, I have to find this. I can post it on our Instagram page. Is that we saw posted on one of the blog pages we follow that's reputable, that Rihanna, through her people, said that she supported Chris's documentary and she supported him being able to tell his truth. And that's something that, as a fan, you want to make sure that the healing on all sides is taking place, and that you know, with him telling his truth, it's not creating more stress that he has to deal with on, say, Rihanna's side. So it's good to see that. Of course, she had to know about it because he had to get her approval for her voice and her images and all.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see that publicly.
Agree with that. I'm glad that she was great with that coming out, as it wasn't something that was unauthorized. I'm glad that she supported that, and it showed that there is truth behind his story. You know, it gives it credibility.
Said in the car, people were saying that during that time, but she was portraying herself as being just sitting there and just, you know, being a victim. So it was nice to see that what we knew from the beginning had been verified, and that she also was basically co-signing it by saying that, you know, she supported Chris.
Not
We want her to
publicly,
get
but
up here on, we want her to be on television, side by side with Christopher Maurice Brown, and have Robin, Rihanna Fenty say, you know what, it was equal, we were young, we were immature, because people couldn't understand that. I mean, just like you said, April, people experienced that in young love, teenage love.
Right.
It was nice. I mean, that would be the final icing on the cake with the, you know, candle
Well,
and
she can
cherry
always-
on top.
Yeah, but she can always do that on her own terms when she has her own documentary. I don't feel like the 2020 interview she gave and all those other ones were really her doing, her more going with the lines of, well, he's done, he's not going to be able to recover from, his felony or whatever, so you need to worry about you, and we're just going to talk about what happened to you, not anything you've done, but just what happened to you and how you feel about what happened to you. And so I think when she ever interviewed, the focus was more or less on quote unquote what he did,
Right.
and not her talking about herself, but not realizing that you're not going to heal if you don't handle your own stuff. So hopefully she's at a point too where she's healed, so that when she has her documentary, whenever that is, she can talk about the things she wants to talk about the way she wants to talk about them. So
Right.
like he was able to do.
I am very big on loyalty.
I agree.
So and I'm also big on ownership, owning my craft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like for people that own their craft. Okay, I'm very big on that.
Right.
Mhm.
So when I struggle with people who don't,
Mhm.
and I have a hard time putting myself in your shoes or walking or having empathy for you. When we were in this together, we both said we love each other, but when the cameras were on, well, I played a victim. I can't with that. You lose me with that. I don't care what the backlash would have been. For someone else to take the full fall or something, they take the full blunt of it on their career, their livelihood. Well, we were in this together, and now I'm in this alone.
Right.
So for him to even want to continue a relationship with her, that says so much about his spirit and his heart, because so many people cannot do that. I'm one of those people. I struggle with that.
Here's the thing, the reality situation is that, at least from my perspective, we were all on Twitter, and Twitter was popping when she did that 2020 interview, because Chris and Miho and all of them were on Twitter.
Oh yeah, they were pissed.
Yeah.
But before they got pissed, though, they were giving us the anticipation that kind of owned some of it. And when she didn't, we were all back on Twitter, and we saw Miho and Chris and Joyce
Drew.
and
The DJ Baby Drew.
Yeah, saying that they were disappointed because they were given the impression as well that.
And that was because.
Was that when Joyce said something?
No, Joyce.
I don't know. She wasn't on yet. She wasn't on Twitter yet.
Yeah.
But she wasn't. She wasn't on Twitter yet. So.
Yeah, but that's what. So from my perspective, just in that real time moment, we were all given the impression that she was being given an opportunity to say whatever she wanted to say, and we were all waiting for her to say it, and then, just by seeing what Chris's people and Chris were doing, they were all on it for the same reason like us, and we were disappointed that she didn't own her part of it.
Well, right. And it's because of the fact, it was interesting. Lots of fans were mad at him when they were hearing like clips or reading clips of interviews that she had been doing, but after 2020 happened, and because all of his crew and their mutual friends were so upset, that had the fans that were mad at him no longer mad at him, some of the ones that were, because they realized
something was left out. Exactly.
Yeah, there was more to the story, and
the dots weren't connecting. You know what, actually, was it Brandy? No, Carrie Hilson was on Twitter, and she said, there's somewhere in this, something didn't add up, or it got foggy, but that's okay. Something's missing, but that's okay.
But I remember that, and never forget, is when Chris said, I don't even know who you are right now. He sounded crushed.
He did.
Oh my God, I will never forget that.
Yeah.
It sounded absolutely.
Well, that had to be devastating.
Oh yeah.
That would be devastating to know that someone that I'm absolutely in awe of and love with, and or you let me take the full fall for this incident, and you're letting my career, my hard work and determination, all of everything that I'm doing, my sweat and tears, just turn into nothing because you're saving space.
And we are going to talk about as many aspects of the documentary as we can, because from what we see from the people who follow us, a lot of people have been experiencing different things that Chris experienced, but a lot of people are hearing for the first time the truth of what Chris went through, not just the incident with Rihanna, but all the other things that he went through. So, this is our first one on the documentary. We're going to have many more, right, Paula? This is just one of the many series that we're going to have. But I think we just want to thank everybody. We got a lot of people who sent us tweets saying, what their questions would be. April, you did a fantastic job of giving us a lot of ideas and a lot of
background information.
And topics to bounce off of too that we can definitely going to add for our future podcast. But I just wanted to say thank you, and Paula and Nikki, let me let you guys talk. But just for us, this really is important to us, and we see people all over the place, regardless of what age you are, struggle with situations that happen in their past or they're dealing with right now. Maybe their sibling or best friend or someone is dealing with some of the things Chris went through. Right. And we just want to kind of open up the discussion because he was brave enough to share his life with us in that documentary, and see if we can, talk about it and let other people know they're not the only ones going through it, and maybe have a discussion so that they can air out and know that some of the stuff that's happening to them is not necessarily normal or something that they shouldn't try to resolve. Let me turn it over to you and to you, Paul, and to you, Nikki.
Well, I want to also thank Sin and April, because y'all were so gracious, because we didn't give you a lot of notice, and you came through like gangbusters. You did great. You really made it for us.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, let me ask this, because I couldn't hear the beginning. Remember, I had my technical problems. Did we talk about how excited we were when we heard our name in that movie?
No, we did not.
Oh my God.
That was so awesome. That was so awesome.
I had my phone on airplane mode, and I was like, oh my God. I got on my phone. I got my phone back on. I was like, D, he ran our freaking tweet. I didn't say freaking. I couldn't believe it. It was
so awesome.
It was.
So I was ready to.
What about you, Nikki? What did you say, Nikki, when you saw that?
So when you remember, you text me. You was like, oh my God! And I saw it as soon as I got out of the parking lot at the movie theater.
Oh.
Before I went in. No, it came through at like 6:49 my time. So I was like, oh. And I said, yay! And my nephew was like, what's going on? I said, he mentions us. So when we went in and he was reading questions, I was sitting front. I was waiting. Like, what's he doing? I want to hear it. And then he read our question, because I had no idea what the question was.
Right.
And when he read our question, I elbowed my nephew. I said, that's us.
Oh my God.
He was like, and he's all smiling. He's like, I see you guys all the time. I was like,
I know. Oh my God.
Okay. Yay, that's great.
Yeah.
So we got Sin on chat room, but for Sin and for April, why don't you guys give us some closing words and let us know, what we could do to improve the next podcast, and hopefully you'll participate in the next podcast. But why don't you tell us, give us some feedback or some thoughts, some closing thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, this is April. I thought this was a really great opportunity to have the conversation. I think that's important. We need to have the conversation and put out there the opportunity for education. And also, I think it's important to ensure that we kind of communicate with people that, you can't always judge a book by its cover. You really need to find out what's inside the book. What's really going on? How was the big book written? How did it, what was the research put into that? What's the history of the book? Everything has something to it, and it's pretty simple-minded to just take information that's coming from the media, information that's coming from every entity without taking the time to research the information. I'm big on research. I'm big on finding out the truth of things. I don't want to just be a sheep and take what's being fed to me. That's not how it works. And if you're in this situation, and this is something people should always do, if it were you, how would you want to be judged? You know,
Exactly.
you know, if you think of it in that perspective, I think that you will be a lot more open-minded to finding out what the truth actually is. And this was a great opportunity to communicate. I'm glad I met you guys. I've been chatting back and forth, going back and forth with you guys. So this is fantastic. And anytime you guys have something going on, I'm going to always support it. Same
We
with Chris.
appreciate
I'm
that.
a supporter of his,
Thank you.
and I'm always supporting any of my artists that I follow. I'm going to support them. That's what we have to do. That is what arty is.
Yes.
Supporting them.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you for your comments. You know, Sin is in the chat room. She said that she wanted to thank us for all the input, and she thought it was great. And she said that she thought we were really nice, and that we brought up some really good points that she's thinking about. And that's the whole thing, is that, you know, again, you know, for us, TV Vanguard, we're fans of Chris, obviously, but
Yeah.
when we came together and created this page, and we've got an Instagram page as well and a website, we were looking specifically for, because at the time when we created this, it was hard to be a fan of Chris's. That's what the moment of time was, where it was really hard to justify being his fan. And we felt like, okay, you know, Chris is a talented person and he's going to have fans, but what can we do to support the fans? And that's how we came up with 5 fans, 4 fans, because we do all this stuff to support him, but we also sometimes need someone to support us and tell us, hey, you know, you guys are doing great. Hey, here's some resources that maybe you could use in your personal life that isn't necessarily tied to Chris, but is something that the fans, you know, we all go through stuff in life. And that's why we wanted to come up with a podcast series, because we knew Chris was going to be honest, but we just didn't know how honest he was going to be and how candid he was going to be. I just want to say to both of you, to April and Sim, thank you so much for participating. When we did Facebook Live, we always have like all these people who are in the background who
Watching.
you know, are watching it, and that's great. But we also need people to give us, you know, a voice and give us their perspective, because their input, because that's the value of it. We don't want it to be where it's just us, you know, talking. We want other people to send questions in and to be engaged in the conversation. So we definitely appreciate both of you, and we appreciate you being willing to participate in this.
And that concludes our podcast for tonight, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you will join us again.